Welcome back to the deep dive. So, another deer season's in the books, and whether you tagged out or you're still thinking about that one that got away, that urge to get ready for next season, it's probably kicking in right about now.
Yeah, and our sources today, they're pushing this, well, it's kind of counterintuitive idea. They're saying the absolute best way to boost your chances next fall isn't waiting around. It's getting out there now, February, March. We're going to dig into why this cold off-season timing actually gives you a serious leg up.
It really does. It feels a bit backwards, right? Trudging through the woods when hunting season feels, I don't know, miles away. But the research, it points to huge strategic wins right now. You've got visibility signs left over from the fall and just plain time. These things create, well, maybe the best shortcut to being really prepared.
A shortcut, I like that.
Yeah, we're talking about finding clues that literally vanish once spring really hits.
Okay, let's unpack that, starting with just the basic efficiency, time. Getting your scouting and planning going now, early February, early March. It just gives you so much more runway. Exactly.
Yeah.
We all know that fall rush, right? That chaos in late summer, early fall. Everyone's scrambling, hanging stands, checking cameras, maybe planting last minute.
Trying to do everything at once.
Yeah, when you cram it all in, you make compromises. Maybe the stand isn't quite right, or you miss a key funnel because you're rushing. Starting now lets you avoid all that. It's like maximizing your opportunity.
That's a really good point. It's not just dodging the rush, it's actually doing the most important part, the intel gathering, when it's easiest. It frees up those warmer months for the actual work, like setting stands or clearing lanes.
You got it.
Yeah.
You allocate your time smartly. Scouting is super sensitive to the environment, right? If you know exactly where that stand needs to go in March, you can hang it perfectly on a nice July evening. No pressure, no guessing based on thick leaves in September. It lets you really dial things in.
And speaking of the environment, that brings us to mid-March and visibility. Every source we looked at hammered this point. The foliage window. What does that bare canopy actually let you see that summer hides?
Oh, it's way more than just seeing further. I mean, yeah, that helps, but bare trees, dormant brush. It gives you a perspective on the land you just won't get come April or May. You can spot those subtle secondary trails, the faint ones that mature bucks use, the wary ones that avoid the main deer highways. You can actually see them now.
Okay, so not just the obvious paths.
Right. And topography.
Yeah.
You can really map out thermal bedding areas, those south-facing slopes getting sun, the thick pines or cedars blocking wind. In late winter, it's obvious where deer have to be to save energy.
Finding their winter survival spots.
Exactly. And finding those now tells you so much about where they'll likely be during cold snaps next late season. It informs that strategy way down the line.
So you're reading the land, the subtle security spots deer need when it's tough out, not just the big travel route.
That's the core of it. And that visibility lets you look down at the ground, at the actual evidence left from last fall. Deer are creatures of habit, like you said, and those signs, they're still there, often preserved right into the snowmelt.
Okay, let's shift to decoding those signs then. If you're out there now, what rut sign should you be laser focused on, and why is now better than, say, last November?
Well, early spring is arguably the best time for finding good rub lines and scrapes. The reason is simple. Last fall's leaf litter hasn't totally decomposed yet. A scrape made back in October. It might have a thin layer of old leaves, sure, but the disturbed earth underneath, it's still pretty obvious. Once things start greening up, new growth just hides it super fast.
Makes sense.
And for rubs, look for the age and size. An older rub, where the scar on the tree looks weathered, that tells you that rub's been important for years. Find a line of big rubs, maybe 4 inches across or more, that are still pretty visible. Boom. You've likely found a major buck travel corridor used during the rut, probably linked to security cover.
That's a key distinction, not just any rub, but ones that show history and size. Our sources also mention rub lines often point you towards one of 2 critical spots.
Yep. They usually lead you either to a consistent food source or, just as importantly, a doe bedding area. The rub line is like the buck's signpost and patrol route. Follow it, and it'll often take you right to that thick cover where you feel safe. Finding that bedding area in March, that's gold. It lets you plan your entry, exit, and stand locations around it for next season.
Gotcha. And while we're talking about finding these key areas, March is also prime time for spotting those geographic funnels the bottlenecks deer use before they get swallowed by vegetation.
Absolutely. And we need to think beyond just there's a funnel. Right now, with everything bare, you can see the exact 20-yard gap, maybe, that deer use to slip from one patch of woods to the next while staying hidden.
Pinpointing the precise path.
Exactly. That precision is huge for stand placement. If you wait till fall, the thick leaves might force you to guess and you could end up 30 yards off. But now, you can see the exact entry and exit points from cover. Your stand placement becomes surgical.
So March isn't just about confirming a funnel exists, it's about mapping the specific route deer take through it, especially those pinch points where they feel squeezed but still secure. And knowing that path, that's what lets you set up later with confidence, knowing you're playing off years of ingrained deer behavior, turns guesswork into, well, much less guesswork.
It really does. And this leads right into tracking specific deer. As you walk these funnels and bedding areas now, you're also looking for the trails themselves.
Right, and the sources stressed a really important difference when IDing trails, especially for mature bucks versus general deer traffic.
Yeah, that's critical. If you find a wide, obvious trail cutting across an open area, that's likely your does, fawns, younger bucks, your
Yep.
main highway. But mature bucks, they hate being exposed. Their routes are often faint, narrow, barely disturbed. They'll stick tight to the thickest cover, or maybe use a steep ridge edge.
So how do you spot those now?
Look for the lack of disturbance almost. Mature buck trails, especially where they move in daylight between bedding and feeding, are subtle. Right now, you might only see a slight depression in the soil under the brush, or where the leaf litter is just barely pushed aside consistently. You need that bare ground to confirm those super secure routes right along the edge of heavy cover.
Okay, finding the executive shortcut, not just the main road. And that ties perfectly into maybe the most fun part of March scouting, shed hunting. But the sources say it's way more than just a treasure hunt.
Oh, absolutely. It's vital intel gathering. Wildlife management, really. Shed hunting now gives you two huge pieces of information for next fall. First, inventory. Who made it through?
Confirmation of survivors.
Exactly. If you were after a specific buck last season and you find his shed now, you know he's alive. And crucially, you know where he was spending time post-rut in late winter. If you find that big shed near a thicket you suspected was bedding, confirmation. That spot becomes a high-value target for late season next year.
That makes perfect sense. And the second piece of info from sheds.
Just the size potential in your area. Finding a really good antler tells you about the genetics and health of the local herd. You're not just hoping big bucks are around. You have proof. Solid proof in your hand.
So finding sheds helps you focus your efforts later.
Totally. If your goal is a mature buck, finding those sheds confirms your habitat can support them. It tells you where to focus, maybe summer food plots, or which areas absolutely need to be left alone as sanctuaries. You're focusing on known survivors, not just guessing who might be out there come October.
Okay, so pulling this all together, for someone listening, maybe thinking about heading out this weekend, what's the big takeaway? It seems to be about grabbing data now that just won't be there later.
That's it in a nutshell. You're maximizing efficiency. Using the bare woods to see funnels, find those old rubs and scrapes, pinpoint trails. You're collecting high-value intel that disappears once everything greens up.
It sets the stage for everything else.
It really does. Our deep dive suggests this early scouting is maybe the single best thing you can do to up your odds. You're front-loading the critical planning, figuring out where the deer are, how they move securely, and who survived. This lets you execute your stand setups later with way more precision. Starting early just stacks the deck in your favor.
That's a powerful argument for turning the off-season into the real prep season. Okay, final thought here. We've talked a lot about how deer are creatures of habit, sticking to those funnels and security routes year after year.
Very predictable in that way.
So here's something for you to chew on. If deer are so loyal to these specific paths, these bottlenecks and pinch points,
Yeah.
how much can active land management actually influence that? Like, what happens if you subtly change a funnel? Maybe trim some brush here, plant some screening cover there. Does it just make them more predictable along that slightly altered path? Or could it actually push them to create a totally new route, one maybe you don't know about yet?
That's interesting. Tweaking ingrained behavior.
Yeah, something to think about while you're putting boots on the ground. Thanks for diving deep with us today.